Hello, everyone, and welcome to the May 22nd, 2022 episode of the Boston Source Radio Show. I am your host, James Bell, the leader of the Boston Source on social media. You could check us out through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and of course the YouTube channel, right? Now, on this particular podcast, we're going to be covering what happened over in the Gila River Arena over in Glendale, Arizona, and also touch on what happened over in Las Vegas, Nevada, as one, the main event there was pretty expected, but also something that happened in the co-feature bout that is of note, and what happened after the co-feature bout is of note to the boxing source. So we will be going over that here in this particular episode. Hopefully, we'll be able to get through this episode here without that many glitches or so. But we'll see how things go. But we want to get it in, starting off with what happened over in Glendale, Arizona, the main event there, as you had El Bandera Roja, or the red flag, David Benavidez, the former two-time WBC super middleweight champion, going up against David Lemieux, former world champion in the division. I think that was the IBF title, or so to speak, that he, won against Hassan and Dom, and ended up losing to Gennady Golovkin in Madison Square Garden a few years back. But we, do see that he did move up to the super middleweight division. Had like a couple fights or so at super middleweight, and had himself a shot to face David Benavidez for the interim WBC super middleweight title. Of course, the full title is held by a man by the name of Saul Canelo Alvarez, or as I say, Santos Saul Alvarez Barragan, right? But here we go. Now, of course, David Benavidez, lost the belt on the scales, never lost the belt in the ring, you know. Came into this particular bout undefeated. And, it was something where, I think that people were expecting a, fairly easy victory for David Benavidez. And that is exactly what happened. David Benavidez pretty beat down David Lemieux. There was times like, the fight could have been stopped in the first round, or at the end of the first round. There's Dave Chappelle. Harvey Dock. He does look like Dave Chappelle, though. Almost stepped in near the end of the first round as David Benavidez was landing a lot of power shots to David Lemieux in the corner before the end of that round. But by the time the end of that round happened, David Lemieux went to his corner, and Harvey Dock followed David Lemieux to his corner and said, "Hey, you're going to have to show me something, or else I'm going to have to stop the fight." And I mean, given, his size, he was much shorter, didn't have the reach, of course, didn't have the side to side mobility that you would need against a guy the size of David Benavidez. He did take a lot of shots. He was knocked down in round two. Went through the ropes in a way, under the ropes, kind of. And he was able to get up from that, and then after that, he was still, taking some more punishment. And then after that second round, it went to the third round. And in the third round, that's when Harvey Doctor said, enough is enough. It was an easy night for David Benavidez, for him to score his 23rd knockout victory of his professional career. And now he is 26-0 with the interim version of the WBC Super Middleweight Championship. And you know what that means? He is pretty much that top guy in line for the WBC Super Middleweight Championship, which is held by Canelo Alvarez. And yes, Canelo Alvarez did lose to Dimitri Bivol a couple weeks ago, but that was at light heavyweight. So we pretty much got to figure out if Canelo Alvarez is going to activate his rematch clause against Dimitri Bivol, which he has about a couple of weeks to make that decision. And then on top of that, if he doesn't do that and he goes down, then he got to see if he goes up against someone like a David Benavidez. And Benavidez, pretty much like called out Canelo Alvarez, called out, the likes of Jermall Charlo, the WBC middleweight champion. Also called out the WBA regular champion, David Morrell Jr. It said, hey, where the contracts at? Send them contracts. We ain't seen no contracts come our way. Or him or his promoter Samson Likowitz, says that no, contracts have come their way. But he said, listen, he'll put his belt on the line, and he guarantees that he's going to knock anyone out that's opposite of him. And he just had a good hometown performance against David Lemieux. Quick work, and he says like, hey, he wants one of those guys. Samson Likowitz, he said that it potentially could be a fight against Caleb Plant or against David Morrell Jr. next. And we're gonna see what happens with that. David Morrell Jr. Does have a fight coming up in a couple weeks over in Minnesota as a co-featured bout to the Daniel Ramon Stephen Fulton main event. I think he should be facing Kelvin Henderson in that fight card. That's supposed to be June 4th. And David Morrell has been talking about David Benavidez multiple times over the past few weeks and says that, hey, David Benavidez is not the boogeyman. I'm the boogeyman. I'm the one that's coming after him. I'm the one that's coming after everybody in the super middleweight division. He says he wants all the smoke. And David Benavidez wants all that smoke too. But earlier today in Twitter Spaces, Samson Likowitz did go on a Twitter Space, and he did say that the likely opponents for David Benavidez next are Caleb Plant and David Morrell Jr. And it seemed like it was really leaning more towards David Morrell Jr. than it was for Caleb Plant, which I found kind of interesting because, Benavidez versus Plant, personally is one of the 5 fights that I would like to see. Or if I had, my way, I would want to see or make that fight, especially for this year. It's been brewing for at least 3 years or so. It's been brewing for at least 3 years or so. And, the thing about it is that I thought that, before Canelo moved up to the super middleweight division, David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant was probably the best fight to make at 168 pounds. And I think still right now, it's still the best fight to make at 168 pounds. I think these two guys are pretty much around the top of the super middleweight division. And that those two guys would make for a really, really good fight. And the build up to that fight would be tremendous there. So, with David Benavidez, having pretty much an easy night against David Lemieux, that should, put him, right back in the mix. I mean, I know that, we have this stuff in reference to fighters that are of a certain caliber, that they only fight, twice a year, given how much, they ask for in their purses or whatnot. So I think David Benavidez is not going to be in the ring again until, maybe October or November. Yeah, I know that there have been some out there in the boxing world that say, hey, why is it that you got to wait until November to have another fight? You pretty much had an easy night. You weren't really hurt. You weren't really uh, nicked by David Lemieux in this particular fight. This was like a showcase fight for you in Glendale, Arizona. You were fighting somebody that was undersized in a sense. Didn't really have the offensive arsenal to really compete with David Benavidez, and yet you want to wait until November. But I mean, going by what David Benavidez says and what Samson Likowitz says, that looks like that's the case. Now, in reference to like I said, David Morrell Jr. Is going to be fighting in June 4th against Kelvin Henderson. And if he gets through that particular fight, he still has that WBA version of the super middleweight title, regular version that is. Now, um, he's able to go through that particular fight. You also do have Caleb Plant that's out there, the former IBF super middleweight champion. He has not been in the ring since his what is it, 10th round loss to Canelo Alvarez. And I think he needs to get back in the ring. I don't know if it should be against David Benavidez, but I mean, the talk was that he could be facing Anthony Durrell. Anthony Durrell, his last performance there, back last year, that was a pretty impressive performance by him with a impressive knockout victory and a very impressive backflip celebration on top of that. But we got to see if that fight is actually going to be solidified. I haven't really seen much news about it as of yet. And we've kind of like had a schedule, so to speak, in reference to what's happening on Showtime, but we haven't had anything in reference to Fox as of yet. But it looks like Fox is going to be back in the fold as far as like Premier Boxing Champions presentations for those fights. So, and yeah, they're not necessarily gonna be like pay-per-view level type of fights. We may have a couple of pay-per-views, but at the same token, you would still have a few fights that are out there that would be on Fox that people will be able to watch there in a large scale. But for Caleb Plant, we got to see first if he does fight Anthony Durrell, if that's going to happen within the next couple months or so, and if not, then is that going to mean that he's going to be going up against David Benavidez later this year? We'll have to see about that. But with David Benavidez, getting a win over David Lemieux last night, that was like I said, it was like easy work there for David Benavidez, man. He like I said, he really didn't break much of a sweat to get that particular win, man. I mean, David Lemieux, he had been out there, at 168-pound limit since he had fought Gary Spike O'Sullivan in 2018. So he's had a few fights there against Maxim Bursak, Francine Titu, and David Zagar. Okay. Yep. Those are the guys that David Lemieux fought at 100 at the super middleweight division. I wouldn't say at 168 pounds. I'm talking about the super middleweight division, which is above 160, 168. That's the limit. So those are the three guys that he fought before fighting David Benavidez. Right? Okay. Cool. Now, of course, Benavidez had been the WBC super middleweight champ. Like I said, didn't lose in the ring, but he had a couple of fights last year. He was fairly active in a sense last year against Ronald Ellis and against Kyron Davis. And Kyron Davis, that was another fight that was around or near his hometown there, where Kyron Davis was a tough guy, tough. Was taking a good amount of punishment, but didn't go down to nothing like that. Was still trying to make a fight of it or something like that, but he just fell short, and they had to stop that fight. there with Kyron Davis. And then after that particular fight for David Benavidez, he faces David Lemieux. And like I said, it was an easy night's work. I think it was more of, I think the bigger story for this particular fight for some was if David Benavidez was going to be able to make weight. Given that he was a little bit north of the 168-pound limit in his last fight against Kyron Davis, but he was able to make weight at 166.5 pounds. Now, hey, that should tell you that, hey, if he wants to, he could make the super middleweight limit or get below the super middleweight limit. You know what I mean? So there's that. Now, like I said, I mean, it was just a easy night's work there for David Benavidez, and we got to see what's next for him. Of course, I did say that Samson Likowitz mentioned the names of David Morrell Jr. and Caleb Plant as the potential opponents for David Benavidez. When it came to the WBC middleweight champion Jamal Charlo, he said, I don't think that fight is going to happen in this year. It's going to be 2023 for that potential fight to happen. And also, in previous conversations over the past, 6 or 8 weeks, another name had been mentioned by, various people, including myself, in Demetrius Andrade. And, Demetrius Andrade, of course, is dealing with an injury. He was scheduled to fight Zach Parker for the WBO interim super middleweight title. But, with his shoulder injury, he was not able to do that. But Samson Likowitz did not necessarily say anything in reference to Demetrius Andrade as far as like a potential fight between Andrade and David Benavidez. And this kind of like goes into what he was talking about a few weeks ago, when he was talking about, that offer that Canelo had for fighting Jamal Charlo and David Benavidez. There was also the other thing where he was saying, hey, in order for David Benavidez to fight Demetrius Andrade, it's going to have to be in excess of $7 to $8 million plus for that fight to happen. So in essence, yeah, that fight ain't happening. It ain't happening. He has a lot of respect for Demetrius Andrade and all that type of stuff. But, Demetrius Andrade and David Benavidez, that fight ain't going to jump off. All right, now, got someone else here to give their take on what happened with that David Benavidez and David Lemieux fight, and then other things here coming up. Of course, coming from the Atlanta area, it is our guy, the boxing academic in the building. What's going on?
Hey, what's going on, James? Just finished cutting some grass, man. Jumped on with you.
Hey, it's the monthly cutting grass thing there, man. All right, y'all all good and all done, man. Yeah, what's happening with you?
It's the summer. I do it every week.
Yeah, buddy.
I'm messing with you, but yeah. I mean, Benavidez looked as good as you could expect him to look to a limited fighter in Lemieux. I was wary at times because, one thing you have to give Lemieux credit. Well, every fight except for maybe the Triple G fight is that Lemieux, when he throws, you can tell he at least tries. He tries to give 110%. Even if his max, capability is 50%, he at least gonna give 55. Even though he maxed out at 50, and he fighting somebody who's like an 80 power level. So the only fight that he didn't do that to me was the Triple G fight, where he looked like he was second guessing himself, and he really wasn't throwing hard shots. He just was kind of there. But at least in this fight, he threw hard shots. Quite naturally, he was overmatched. Quite naturally, when Benavidez started to kind of move in closer to his shots as opposed to like backing away, moved in close and countered, it was what you would expect with someone who, again, is limited. And so that leads me to say, Lemieux, you got to give him credit. You got to give all the people who step into the ring and they go against the Goliath, and then they try because he could have packed it in a long time before that, getting hit with such big shots. And, the ref was about to stop it, but I'm glad his corner ended up stopping it when they did, because there was no reason to keep that fight going on. I mean, he signed the fight, he gave his effort, and, he wasn't going to win the fight. I mean, unless it was just some. I mean, if the fight would have went on, maybe he'd have hit him with a lucky shot, but still, I think even hurt Benavidez still could have, you know, maybe had very good success against Lemieux in that state that he was in. So, I mean, I don't think this fight necessarily showed me. Well, I was going to say it didn't show me much about Benavidez. It showed me that Benavidez was committed to jabbing more than what I've seen him in the past. Even though he didn't have a jab, let's say like Errol Spence or like Charlo, who just fought, a week or two ago. He didn't have a jab like that, like where he led everything off the jab. But maybe about 60% of the time he uses jab, and those times, I mean, you use your jab and you got like 60-inch arms, and this other dude only got like 40-inch arms. What you expect, right? So yeah, it didn't tell me much because, as you probably have alluded, he get hit a little bit too much, and he got kind of overconfident, which is why I'm like, this dude about to get clipped with something because he getting too overconfident. But it didn't tell us much fighting Lemieux. It just was kind of like a stay busy fight where he just kind of like flexed his muscles.
Yeah, I mean, my thing was, in the super middleweight division, you wanted to see if there was going to be like some type of marquee fights there. I mean, they were still available, even with Canelo Alvarez going the route of fighting Dimitri Bivol. You still could have had, you know, um, Benavidez going up against Caleb Plant or against David Morrell or against Jamal Charlo, that is. And didn't quite happen that way. And like I was saying earlier before you jumped on, Samson Lukowitz was saying like, hey, I mean, you got these guys that Benavidez could have fought, but the contracts or the offers weren't out there. And guys that that were potential opponents for him, they just didn't say, hey, we want to go ahead and fight him. But now, after this particular fight, those names are coming up once again, and it's going to be even stronger than before, particularly with the likes of Caleb Plant and David Morrell Jr. and especially with David Morrell Jr. being very vocal on saying that he wants to fight David Benavidez and saying that, hey, David Benavidez is not really a boogeyman. He ain't really scared of David Benavidez and that type of thing. So right now, it's just a matter of, okay, we'll see what happens with David Morrell against Kelvin Henderson in a couple of weeks, and then after that, if his team and Samson Lukowitz want to work on making a fight, then hey, maybe we have that fight later this year instead of David Benavidez versus Caleb Plant, which like I was saying, I'm like, that's the fight that I've been waiting for in the super middleweight division, but. Looks like Caleb Plant just chilling. I mean, he got his bag. He got the bag with the Canelo fight last year, and people were talking about him potentially facing Anthony Durrell, and we haven't seen or heard of an announcement on that quite yet. So I'm like, hey, if he's not in the picture, then I guess it's going to be David Morrell Jr. next for David Benavidez next up. And that would be a really good fight between those two guys. But, like you were saying there, Boxing Academic, David Lemieux knew he was like overmatched. He, tried his best, against someone that was like much bigger than him. I know that David Benavidez was able to make it down to 166 and a half pounds, but he probably rehydrated to 180 pounds for this particular matchup, probably more. Who knows? But he didn't really have that much of a shot in this, and he just gave his effort as long as he could. But he just ended up getting stopped, and who knows? That might be the last time that we see David Lemieux in the ring. He didn't really kind of like say that after the fight, but before it was like it was almost like a last stand for him in a sense. But with him falling short, I guess there really might not be much of anything else out there for David Lemieux at this particular point of his career. So,
Well, I would say this is a bad measuring stick to say that this is your last, go at it. Like take a few steps down and then make that decision because David Lemieux definitely can beat these C minus, C and below fighters. He's a C level fighter, so he can beat C level fighters. He might luck up and beat a B level one day, you know, with a nice punch. I don't think that's a good measuring stick to say you done based off of a B level fighter. Losing to a B level fighter.
hmm.
And
So if so say Caleb Plant doesn't fight Anthony Durrell and they have David Lemieux against Anthony Durrell, you think you would have a shot against Anthony Durrell?
Anthony Durrell is kind of wishy washy. Like it was that one fight where he looked very unsturdy on his legs and looked like he had like needed the concussion protocol. Remember that fight where his legs looked weak, like how when Bernard Hopkins was fighting, he was like one too many fights like Joe Smith Jr. and his legs looked real weak and like he couldn't really stand. Like I remember Durrell had
Mhm.
a fight like that where he was just maybe he got caught in that fight, but I'm just saying he looked his base didn't look strong at all. And
Hmm.
he was just getting touched like one or two shots and just didn't even look like hard shot. I mean some of them was hard, but yeah, it might have been the Hispanic guy who Caleb Plant knocked out.
Well, I don't know because his losses were to
Who's
Benavidez
Kadagi?
and Badu Jack. No,
Who's
that was
Kadagi?
that was Andre.
Oh, okay, my bad. Never mind. Forget everything I said. I'm getting them confused.
Yeah, but the thing about with Anthony Durrell is that he last year, at the beginning of last year, he fought Kyron Davis, right before Kyron Davis fought David Benavidez, and in that particular fight, he didn't look, all too well. It didn't. Kyron Davis won that particular fight. But then, we turned around and then had a very, very good performance against Marcos Hernandez and got a fourth round TKO. That was probably the knockout of the night for that Canelo Plant, pay per view card there. But outside of that, we got to see what happens with Anthony Durrell as far as like if he's going to end up facing Caleb Plant next, or if not, then yeah, maybe a David Lemieux fight. They keep him busy. But sometimes with Anthony Durrell, even after that Kyron Davis fight, it was almost like he said he wanted to, have big fights. And if he doesn't have big fights, then he's not really going to be interested unless, you, I guess, convince him to do it for, some, good amount of money that he's able to accept. That's how he was able to fight Marcos Hernandez. I mean, that wasn't, initially a fight against Marcos Hernandez wouldn't be something that he would be interested in, but he still ended up having that fight. So maybe a fight against David Lemieux later this year, if he doesn't get that Caleb Plant fight, maybe that would interest him. Because as far as like him fighting someone like Jamal Charlo, I don't see that something like that happening there for Anthony Durrell. So there's that. Anything else in reference to like David Benavidez and him potentially fighting either Caleb Plant or David Morrell later this year? If you got any take on that, boxing academic. Oh, looks like he's kind of tied up here briefly, but I wanted to go back here before he's able to get back on. Wanted to talk about a couple of things there for that card that was in Glendale, Arizona. In the Showtime portion of the card, you had Luis Nunez against Jonathan Fierro, two guys that were unbeaten there in the featherweight division. Nunez 16-0 coming in there, and Fierro was 13-0 coming in there. Was a unanimous decision victory for Luis Nunez. Had like a couple of good action rounds early in the fight, but then it really kind of lulled down in the second half of the fight. Nunez, is someone that kind of like has a little bit of power there at 126, but he has to sharpen up his punches because he was throwing a lot of wide punches there in that particular bout. And that if it wasn't for like Fierro being so young there, because Fierro is like 18 or something like that. I think he's they were like, yeah, he's 18. Of course, you know how they do in Mexico. You turn pro at like 14 or 15, and that's how you're able to build up a record. But he is 18 years old going up against Luis Nunez, and he just didn't have enough in order to get the win. It was three 96-94 scores for Luis Nunez for him to move to 17-0. And then in the co-featured bout, you had Uelvis Gomez and Jorge Cota there in the super welterweight division. Jorge Cota is one of those guys that is like a veteran there at super welterweight. Had fights against Jason Rosario, Jermel Charlo, Sebastian Fundora, and also like Erickson Lubin. Actually, those were the losses that he had up into this fight against Uelvis Gomez. Gomez was coming in there with a record of 5-0, with 5 of those wins by way of knockout. He was looking to get another knockout, and you seen that he was trying to do that early in those first few rounds, but it was Jorge Cota that was still able to weather that early storm there and get through those 10 rounds. But it was just 10 rounds where he didn't necessarily do that much or enough in any of those rounds. According to the judges, it was a clean sweep, unanimous decision victory for Uelvis Gomez, 190 in all 3 cards for Uelvis Gomez to become 6-0 there in the super welterweight division. So that was the co-feature bout for that, pretty much that drubbing thereby David Benavidez. And also, we did have Victor Ortiz that was part of the non-televised portion. He was on this card against Todd Manuel, right? Okay, I'm checking the box rec, right? Todd Manuel had a record of 20 wins, 19.
If you're saying something, I can hear your mic.
All right. No, we had just a little bit of an issue there. So we're back, should be back here. With what we're talking about. Hopefully, the boxing academic is still with us. I was talking about Victor Ortiz was part of this card over in the Gila River Arena there in Glendale, Arizona, going up against a guy that was 20, 19, and 1. Scored he scored a unanimous decision victory against the guy in Todd Manuel that was 20, 19, and 1. And on top of that, Victor Ortiz did hit the canvas in the last round. So hope maybe there might be some highlights for it. Maybe they have something where they were televising the fight. But he did get a unanimous decision victory there. But he did get knocked down in round 10. Also, the young prospect, so to speak, Richardson Hitchens was in this card. He was there 13-0 against Angel Rodriguez. Scored a fourth round TKO victory for Hitchens to move to 14-0. So Richardson Hitchens is now 14-0 there in his professional career. That was like his sixth knockout victory there. So you do have that as what I wanted to cover as far as like that particular card. And like I said, with the headliner of David Benavidez taking out David Lemieux in 3 rounds for him to stay undefeated, and he is now the interim champion at for the WBC at 168 pounds. You also did have as part of the other card of there over in Las Vegas, Nevada, as you had Zanabek Alimkhanuly going up against Danny Dignam for the interim title for the WBO middleweight division. So you did have that. Zanabek pretty much made quick work of Danny Dignam there. That was yet another easy victory there for Alimkhanuly. It was much easier than his last fight over in the Mandalay Bay against Hassan Ndam. This was a second round knockout victory where he pretty much landed the uppercut on Dignam to floor Dignam and scored that KO victory. He is 12-0 with that being his 8th stoppage victory of his professional career. He did win the interim title for the WBO. Of course, Demetrius Andrade was longtime WBO middleweight champion. There was nothing where Demetrius Andrade was able to set up a fight where it could have been like a unification fight of any sort, or fights against the likes of Jaime Munguia, who was supposed to be the long-standing mandatory challenger for the WBO middleweight championship. So, I mean, if Demetrius Andrade couldn't get those fights that he was looking for at middleweight, he was going to try his luck at super middleweight. He was supposed to fight Zach Parker, and like I said, with the shoulder injury that he suffered, he was not able to fight Zach Parker. And we got to see what is going to be next up for Demetrius Andrade after that. If he's still, want to pursue that fight against Zach Parker, or if he does go down to 160, and maybe he has something set up for Zanabek. But with the contract situation there with Demetrius Andrade, he does have one fight under the contract with Matchroom Boxing, and that was supposed to be, there against Zach Parker. And after that, he would be basically a free agent. Now, if he still wants to pursue that fight against Zach Parker at 168, that's all up to him. Maybe I could get in contact with his father, Paul Andrade, who is also his trainer, and he'll be able to see if he could set something up right there. You know what I mean? But outside of that, we got to see what this situation is with the WBO middleweight title, as Zanabek Alimkhanuly is the interim champion. And yeah, they've started up the hype already that, this guy's Kazakh style and he's this buzzsaw and all and this, that, and the third. And when I talked with Paul Andrade, what was that, about a few months ago? He's like, come on, man, like Zanabek, are y'all kidding me? Like Zanabek, like if Demetrius Andrade had fought Zanabek and won, they pretty much say that was, pretty like a ho-hum victory for Demetrius Andrade. That's what Paul Andrade said. That portions of the interview is still on the YouTube channel here for the Boxing Source. So y'all, if y'all want to go back and check that out, it's still on the channel there. But that was kind of like a easy victory for Zanabek and Alimkhanuly there in that main event against Danny Dignam over in the Resorts World in Las Vegas, Nevada. And in the co-feature bout, you had former WBO super featherweight champion Jamel Herring going up against Jermaine Ortiz. With Jermaine Ortiz there with the undefeated record of 15-0, and Jamel Herring with the record of 23-3. Of course, he had his last bout against Shakur Stevenson, where he lost that WBO super featherweight title. And here he faced Jermaine Ortiz at lightweight. He said that Jamel Herring said that there was like no fights out there for him at super featherweight, and there were a couple of guys at lightweight that didn't necessarily accept the fight with Jamel Herring. So ended up facing Jermaine Ortiz. Jermaine Ortiz was there at 15-0-1, and this was for a couple of minor titles there in the lightweight division, and it ended up being a unanimous decision win for Jermaine Ortiz with two scores of 97-93 and one score of 96-94. It was just Jermaine Ortiz being the younger guy, fresher guy, was first to punch in multiple occasions there against Jamel Herring, and it was almost similar to Jamel Herring's encounter with Shakur Stevenson, where he just really couldn't get his offense going, And with that being said, you have Jermaine Ortiz there now with 16 wins, 0 losses, and 1 draw, and Jamel Herring now 23-4, and after that fight, pretty much made it known that particular fight was the last fight of his professional career. He says that he didn't want to go through it anymore, and that it's pretty much it for him. That was posted on his Facebook page. That was posted on his Twitter page. That he says it was too much for him to go through it, and that it's pretty much it for him. And I think that he probably felt that around that time that he was facing Shakur Stevenson, and when you've had a certain level of experience or a certain number of fights, that you go through, it's pretty much not the fight, it's the training. It's getting up every day, going to camp, going through sparring, going through exercises, all that type of stuff, and then getting up again and doing it again, that kind of takes a toll on you. And this is something that was it Kevin Kelly had said a couple of weeks back in a previous conversation that I had with Major Key Boxing. Shout out to Major Key Boxing real quick there. And that it just was pretty much just something where Jamel Herring just said, man, I just can't do this anymore, man. Just can't do this anymore. And so, he's hanging up his gloves. Like I said, he was able to win the WBO Super Featherweight Championship. A while back. Got that win over Masayuki Ito. Was able to defend it a couple of times. Had wins over Lamont Roach Jr. Also, his performance against Carl Frampton last year before losing it to Shakur Stevenson. He also was, looking to see if he could have a unification bout before facing Shakur Stevenson when Miguel Burchell had the WBC version of that super featherweight title, but that didn't necessarily happen there. So, that's the thing about it, is that, I think he wanted to see if he would be able to, not only win a world title, but become, unified at super featherweight, but he wasn't able to do that. and then Shakur Stevenson, who came up from featherweight, was WBO featherweight champ, moved up to super featherweight, and then ended up facing Jamel Herring and was able to have a clear victory over Jamel Herring in 10-round stoppage there. And then after that, Jamel Herring went up against Jermaine Ortiz, and that was at 135, and he ended up losing that. And so he just said, "Hey, I mean, I'm not going to continue my career. If it looks like you're gonna set me up this way." So that's how that broke down there for Jamel Herring. But he was someone that is a very stand-up guy, of course. Former Marine, of course, and all that. Stand-up guy, very, very cordial, when possible. And always was, open to speaking with the fans and with, those that covered the sport. Was one of the early guests of the Boxing Source radio show podcast, and anytime that reached out to him and I was able to reach him, he would be very open to speaking with us. So he's been a guest on this podcast on multiple occasions. And hopefully, if he has the opportunity, he'll be able to jump on once again to kind of like talk about his pro career here. So we might have him back on here. But shout out to Jamel Herring, on achieving what he was able to achieve there in his professional career. Like I said, WBO super featherweight champion at one point, and had, like I said, his record of 23 wins and 4 losses. So that's what I had in reference to that that bout and pretty much that card. You had a couple of other fights that were on that card, including Tiger Johnson was on that particular card as well, and Tiger Johnson was able to get a TKO victory over Augustin Kucharski. Yeah, that's what it was, Kucharski. You also have Blue Nose Adam Lopez get a unanimous decision victory over William Encarnacion. Jesse Magdaleno scored a win over Eddie Mercado. So Jesse Magdaleno is 29-1. I mean, Jesse Magdaleno is a former, challenger out there. And he had the WBO Super Bantamweight Championship before losing it to Neho Isaac Dogbe, and also campaigned at 126 pounds, but didn't necessarily challenge for a world title at 126. There was like a little bit of a situation with that, but that's neither here nor there. But Jesse Magdaleno is now 29-1 in his professional career, so you do have him still out there competing within that 126, 130 range and whatnot. So that pretty much is most of the stuff that happened over in Resorts World in Las Vegas, Nevada there. So that covers all that stuff as far as like the action that went down there this weekend. Try to go through what's going down for next weekend. Barclays Center, WBA version of a lightweight title, the regular WBA lightweight title. Gervonta Tank Davis against Rolando Rolly Romero. And yeah, that fight was supposed to happen in December. Rolly Romero had a little bit of an issue, domestic stuff, and it had cleared up. Tank Davis fought Isaac Cruz. Got through that fight with the decision win over Isaac Cruz. Now, he has this fight here against Rolly Romero, and these two guys don't like each other at all. And both of these guys are undefeated. The thing with Rolly Romero, he is there undefeated, but a good number of people, thought that he lost to Jackson Martinez. Few, pretty much what was that, like over a year ago? They thought that he lost to Jackson Martinez. Um, but he had that other fight against Anthony Yigit, or can you dig it Yigit, whatever the his nickname was. Um, and he scored a knockout victory over Anthony Yigit. And that was for the interim version of the belt. So um, they pretty much eliminated that interim title, so it made him the top contender for the WBA regular title. WBA is in a mess. But still, he's able to face Tank Davis here at the Barclays Center. Looks like it might be a sellout. I have to check. Might have to check with Most Valid Opinion MVO for the .com report on that. But Barclays Center should be jumping for this particular fight or this event there. But Boxing Academic, if you're still on, you want to jump on as far as like what's going on with Tank Davis and Rolly Romero, and a lot of people are favoring Tank Davis to score a knockout. Do you see that the same way?
Yeah, I would say so. Rolly his head doesn't move very much, and he sort of like uh imagine like I'm not saying he does this, but I'm saying be imaginative with me where I'm saying this. So imagine you got like a little child, and the child is like trying to be larger than life, so they like poke their chest out, and then they stick their arms out like they like Lex Luger or something, and then and then you like swing punches like that. That's how he kind of like his persona is, which I get it. I mean, in this game, you want to be larger than life, and you want to display that kind of charisma. But yeah, since this game ain't played and it's participated in, that type of stuff is gonna get him gonna get his jaw touched and potentially broken, because if he don't protect his chin and he throwing them wide shots, which it seems like his shots be throwing hard, and I will say, when I see him throwing hooks and stuff, he throw them pretty fast, so he might even catch Tank with something, but it's gonna be on some like they scrapping and Tank just starting to get real confident, and then he gonna swing with one of them wide shots, and then he end up hitting Tank and might even hurt him. And I would even go so far to say, for him to throw like them wide shots, he's kind of fast. He sort of, in a sense, not really remind me of the guy who got a million YouTube followers, Ryan Garcia, in a sense. Like, with the way he throw the wide shots, but they sort of fast. Like Ryan Garcia obviously is more athletic than him, but or at least I think he is.
And I think that Ryan Garcia, even with wide shots that he has, I think he's still even a little bit sharper than Rolly Romero is.
Yeah. But I just needed confirmation. That's all.
Yeah, but I think even with that, I think Rolly Romero has the ability to, like you said, with his speed, he could throw off Tank Davis in some instances. So I think that's something that people will look for in this particular fight, is that even though it seems like Tank Davis could be highly favored in this particular matchup, there could be instances where maybe he kind of like has a little bit of lulls. Like we've seen that in Tank Davis in a few of those fights. We've seen Tank Davis deal with the length of Leo Santa Cruz, where he was getting hit a little bit there against Leo Santa Cruz. It just like was, okay, I'm gonna get through all of this just to land my big shot, and once I land my big shot, you're not gonna get up. And that's what ended up happening there in that fight. We had that thing there where against Yuriorkis Gamboa, the fight that we attended there in Atlanta, where he had lulls in the middle of that fight, and Yuriorkis Gamboa was, able to hit him a few times in that particular bout before Tank Davis just said, you know what, I'm going to just, go through him and run through him like a buzzsaw. And he was able to do that in the 12th round. So here, I think that it might be the same thing where he's gonna kind of like look at what is happening there with Rolly Romero and see if he's able to take the shots. And if he's able to take the shots, then he's gonna just try to walk right through them.
Yeah, Rolly definitely has a punch chance, though. I would, unless he shows something that he hadn't really truly shown in these other fights, I think that's the only thing he got is a puncher's chance. Now, if he comes and he show, if Tank bring out the best in him and he shows something that we have never seen, or if he catch Tank, which could happen again, that's their puncher's chance. I think Tank just got to be careful because this ain't the guy you want to get knocked out by. Not this guy.
Yeah, certainly not. That if there was anybody that you would get stopped against, this is not the guy. I mean, I know that Rolly Romero is trying to be like a very marketable person in a sense with what he's doing in the press conferences and the all accesses that's happening. But like you say with the case of Julius Ndongo, he ain't that good. I'm sorry, man, but he ain't that good. So you wouldn't want to have a serious setback like this, especially with all the stuff that that has been invested in Tank Davis for him to be the next star. People calling him like Baby Tyson. They're putting this amount of money and time for him to be the pay-per-view guy. On Showtime or whatnot, and for all of that to kind of like be thwarted in a sense by a loss to someone like Rolly Romero, yeah, that would really, really hurt the momentum that Tank Davis has right now, especially given that he's on the verge of kind of like going full-fledged by himself on his own. They're kind of like releasing him out for him to fly as far as like Mayweather Promotions is concerned. So you want to keep that momentum going. And then after, he's kind of like free with Mayweather Promotions, you probably see him in larger or bigger fights in the future. So we'll see what happens here against Rolly Romero and then see if that kind of like builds into something else coming later on down the line, maybe in December, because it looks like, they're trying to have Tank Davis fight on Memorial Weekend each year, and then maybe around either the last weekend of October to I guess the first weekend of December, maybe something around that range. So I kind of like expect a easy victory for Tank Davis. Should be an easy victory for him. And for him to like move on to bigger fights there in the future. The rest of the card, man. I'm looking for my guy is supposed to be on this card. A young man, Jalil Major Hackett is added to this card. Still got to see if they have added an opponent there for Jalil Hackett, but he will be part of this card. That's at the Barclays Center. And also co-feature bout former champion of 154, Arizona De Lara, is fighting Gary Spike O'Sullivan for the regular version of the WBA title. And you have Jesus Ramos against Lucas Santa Maria in this fight card too. But there's going to be other fights that are added to this card here that'll be announced probably tomorrow, something like that. But like I said, the feature bout Tank Davis versus Rolly Romero there for that WBA regular lightweight title So that's the thing that I'm waiting on here in Barclays Center next weekend, and it should be a good little scene there. I'm gonna see if I could go out there, check it out, um, and see how things are going, man. I mean, I know that there might be some ladies there that might want to be seen or something or whatever, but yeah, yeah, I'm just there to cover the fights if I can. You know what I'm saying? So that's how that's gonna go. Um, and after that, we should have a few more fights, big fights coming up. That's it for the month of May and whatnot. Um, but in June, of course, you got Stephen Fulton going up against Daniel Ramon, and like I said, in the co-feature bout, David Morrell going up against Kelvin Henderson, and George Kambosos Jr. versus Devin Haney for the undisputed lightweight titles over in Australia, the Marvel Stadium in Australia. And then a couple days after that, you're going to have the rematch between Naoya Inoue and Nonito Donaire. And that's going to be a unified title bout there in that particular division there, the bantamweight division. So got a lot of good fights that are coming up here in the next few weeks, and we're gonna see if we could do our best to cover most of that and other news that's happening there in the sport of boxing. But that kind of like covers mostly what I was talking about here for this particular podcast. I know that Boxing Academic wasn't able to jump on last week. Kind of like had something scheduled off, the regular schedule last weekend. So we didn't necessarily, I didn't necessarily get your take on what happened with that rematch between Jamel Charlo and Brian Castano, where Jamel Charlo scored that 10th round TKO victory there, and had a very good performance there. Anything on that particular bout that was almost like a fight of the year contender?
So I don't have my notes in front of me, but going off my memory, I think that what's the trainer name?
Derek James.
Derek James deserved trainer of the year. So that's number one, because if you look at who his fighters faced and how they won, the framework of how they both won was similar. It had the similar bones, but different kind of meat on it. And if you look at the framework, like the bones that he putting down for people, now he got like very good canvases to where it's very easy to probably impart knowledge on both of those guys, because they're highly intelligent and very, very skillful in what they can do, and just they got a lot of talent as well. But the framework for what he laid down for them and how they won, the adversity that they face, Errol Spence where it was fault of his own, and Charlo where he had a game opponent, but the way he was hitting him and how he was hitting him, which started with the jab, in no one's body is meant to take that punishment, which is why we don't see Ruslan Provodnikov no more, which is why I can't think of nobody else. But Ruslan Provodnikov is the first person that come to mind. Yes, he had a very strong mind, but I bet that dude probably still pissing blood. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know something is like physically wrong with him if he probably ain't shaking or got earlier signs of CTE right now. Our body ain't meant to take that punishment. And the punishment that he dished out, which started with the jab, and how he sort of controlled the distance and led the action with the jab, it's like how Andre Ward would say, you be moldable, but you mold everything off of starting with the jab. I will say you can tell Charlo has an active mind. Like, in contrast, and I'm not comparing these guys, I'm just giving an example. His stablemate Errol Spence. I can see Errol Spence has a more calm mind. which is evident in how he fights. Yeah, he fights, however, but you like even Charlo brother got a calmer mind because Charlo at times you can see him his mind racing and like you can even see in fights where he's not as confident and somebody's coming on and making him sort of lose his confidence because he just like thinking and the way that he talks, he probably like thinking in his mind, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? What am I gonna do? You know what I'm saying? He has a fast mind. So, if I humbly had to offer anything to him, which I'm just a lowly sideline person here, but I'm just saying I think he would be that much better or improve because everything's about improvement. If he worked on stuff to like calm his mind, because yes, he fought a fighter the way he came them, but let's say if you fight a fighter where you are behind and you get knocked down, that overactive mind ain't gonna be very helpful to you because it's gonna be telling you like, am I gonna be able to do this? Am I gonna be able to do this? And then as opposed to you like slowing down and just saying, like when Andre Ward got dropped and Kovalev won, and all he said was, "Let me just win this round. Let me hit him to the body. Let me stop headhunting. Let me hit him to this body and win this round." Okay, I didn't get hit that round. Let me win this round. Let me start with the body. Anytime he comes out, I'm leaving him with a body shot. Anytime he leaves out, I'm leaving him with a body shot. And their game plan is built on the jab. I'm skipping something. Their game plan is built on the jab and body shots. And the game plan to me, when I watched all the highlights of God of War with the ball head, he knocked out Marvin Hagler. That's what I see. Leading with the jab, throwing them body shots, throwing them hooks when he get in there. But it's just like constant pressure. It's hard to beat that style, man. Especially if you got somebody who got power and got a motor, and they got like a semi chin too. That's a tough style to beat. Again, I would just if I had to offer any advice or anything, that would be one thing that I would love to see him improve on is just calming his mind and just there's a storm, but be the eye of the storm. Don't be the winds. Let your extremities be the winds for you, but your mind got to be the eye. It got to be calm. I'm not sure if you understand what I'm saying about Charlo, but that's the only knock. I mean, it's not even a knock. That's the only advice that I would say if he's in a different fight to where he's down that I would want him to work on.
I mean, it's all about his level of patience, and I think in that particular fight against Casano, he was able to exert that. Even with Casano's pressure, he was able to stay calm and not really in this particular rematch. He didn't stay on the ropes like he was doing that a lot in the first fight. He didn't really stay on the ropes in the second fight. He just got himself moving off to the side, kept that jab flowing, mixing things up, and like you said, eventually wore him down and was able to stop him. And so I think that's going to be one element of his game that makes him dangerous for the years to come. Now, I wanted to add in someone that's just jumping in here. I think he was just off of extended conversation about the best point guards of all time in the NBA. This is, of course, the former president of the Bomb Squad, the Deontay Wilder fan club. The man from the Boogie Down Bronx, Mr. MVO, is in the building. I forgot about doing that damn mask on too. Yo, MVO, what's good?
What the hell was the boxing academic just talking about?
I see, man. You always do this.
I'm trying to figure. I was like, huh?
I'm gonna call you out in front of everybody and tell people that you trying to be like that dude Troy, where you being public. Matt is nice to me when people ain't around. The MVO is very nice to me. He have amicable conversations and he try to be my friend when it ain't people around. He's only doing this because we in like the public eye. Continue.
Let me ask you a question. The boxing academic, aka his mama call him Mike Grady, so I'm gonna call him Mike Grady. Let me ask you a question. Are you going to the Deontay Wilder statue ceremony on Wednesday?
No.
Oh.
Wait,
Wow.
wait. Hold on. If I'm not mistaken, isn't Boxing Academic supposed to be the sitting vice president of the Deontay Wilder fan club?
This guy's a fraud.
Because I'm not going, because I got to work. I'm eating also because I got to work, and I'm not going to skip work to go to a
You
ceremony
don't
when
even
I
know what
could.
time it is.
What time is it?
See, you you even got to work at that time. You don't even know
What
what
time
time
is
it
it?
is.
What time is it?
1 o'clock is the meet and greet. 2 o'clock is the statue unveiling.
Okay, like I said, in the middle of the day.
And you can't take off work.
No.
Wow.
I'm sorry,
You know, I my folks live in Birmingham. I could always go and see the statue at any point in time.
Yeah, but you can't go see Deontay Wilder at any point in time.
You think I'm gonna get to see him with all them people that's gonna be in the way?
Yeah, it's called a meet and greet, my man.
Why don't you explain to me and tell me what's happening? Since you
So,
know everything.
in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, the legendary Deontay Wilder, who is the former WBC and current People's Champion, who had 10 title defenses, and who has the most devastating knockout punch in the history of the heavyweight division, is being honored in his hometown with a life-size bronze statue that will be unveiled on Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. But 1 hour before the statue unveiling, Deontay Wilder, because he is a man of the people, will do a meet and greet with all the fans that are coming down to see the statue unveiling.
So as I was saying, I'm gonna meet him another time. I ain't gonna wait in the line when I meet him.
By the way,
Well, I will be down there.
yo,
You will for real, or you talking smack?
I will be down there.
I need to
am
see a
taking
picture. I need to see a picture.
Yeah,
I
we want
am
you to take a picture
taking
with him.
a 31-hour bus trip to see Deontay
Oh,
Wilder.
oh no, I forgot. You don't go on no planes either. Oh God, no. Oh God.
Well, it don't matter anyway because ain't no airport in Tuscaloosa.
It's one in Birmingham, which is an hour away.
Is there really?
Yes,
Yeah, man. Come on. See,
See, you think you
don't
know
do it.
everything, but I'm
Yo,
telling you
don't do it.
the
Don't do
real
it,
details
yo.
that you need to know.
I
Don't
don't know
do
shit
it.
about the South.
Oh my God.
Obviously,
Oh my
I've
God.
never been to the South before.
it shows.
So I could take a plane to Birmingham, and then how
Yeah,
would I get to Tuscaloosa?
get a car and drive an hour.
I don't drive.
You don't drive for real?
No, I don't drive.
He don't drive.
Uh Are there buses? I would look and see if there should be a Greyhound going from Tuscaloosa to Birmingham.
Because you know what? If I can cut hours off my trip, I will bite the bullet and take an airplane. What's the name of the airport in Birmingham?
What's a what?
What is the name of the airport in Birmingham?
BHM. Search that on
BHM.
Google. This Birmingham
Okay.
Airport.
Yeah, JFK to BHM, man.
All right. I'm going to look into that tonight because I was actually planning on leaving Monday night. I was going to sleep outside like a bum Tuesday night and then make my way to the event on Wednesday.
Oh my God.
Does he get some of his title back? Can we move him up to VP? I'll relinquish my title since he's going to see him. Can he get VP? Boxing source?
Yes, he would be able to get VP if he does make it over to the Deontay Wilder meet and greet session this Wednesday afternoon.
See, MVO, don't say I ain't trying to do nothing for your sorry ass.
Listen, this is very exciting. I mean,
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Warren said, "What MVO living in the '80s?"
this is true. I'm one of the few people that still got cable.
I got it, but I'm about to cut it off from Xfinity. They charge me $200 a month, which is
I pay
crazy.
like $267 a month.
Oh my God. Nah. I don't remember the last time I had cable television. I really don't.
I watch my TV every time boxing come on. I don't watch it too much. I watch the movie. I might watch a movie tonight, but I'm just saying I don't watch TV, and I'm paying $200. Yeah, I'm going to cut this off.
Do you have HBO?
I do, and Stars.
You need to watch the brand new George Carlin documentary that just came out. It's a 2-part documentary. It is excellent.
Oh man.
Remind me who George Carlin is.
Oh my God, that's one of the greatest comedians ever, bro.
Oh, George Carlin. Okay. Yep.
Oh my God.
Hey, all right, MVO, man, back on this thing. You jumped on, man. 2 blowout victories last night. David Benavidez, washes David Lemieux barbecue chicken. He says that all those BIs didn't send the contract, so they need to send the contract in order to fight me. But you also got a man by the name of David Morrell Jr. that says that David Benavidez ain't no boogeyman. So
he's not.
So Samson Lickowitz said that fight could possibly be next. Do you believe Samson Lickowitz?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
He has a track record of telling the truth.
And my thing is, I just think that Caleb Plant's kind of cool and straight, and he ain't looking to fight nobody unless that person's name is Ray Jackson or
exactly. Caleb Plant too busy arguing on Twitter.
God,
arguing with who?
Oh, there's a dude on Twitter that he was going back and forth about last week in reference to that dude making comments, I guess, about his wife, and that just triggered him.
What did he say about his wife?
He didn't say anything about his wife. All he said was, "Oh, your wife is probably sitting right next to you. Why don't you tell her how you feel?" Because Caleb Plant made some post thanking his wife and shit. He was like, "Yo, she's right next to you. Just tell her. You don't gotta tell everybody on Twitter."
And he was like, "If I want to show praise to my baby, in the public."
Shit. It turns very vulgar, actually.
Yeah, that's how young people talk anyway. You can't tell me, Matt. Like even if we like on this podcast, you gotta like put it on Twitter or something. You just can't tell me. You gotta put it on Twitter for people to know it's real.
It ain't real if it ain't on Twitter, huh?
One of them, yeah.
Oh man, but yeah, that it looks like Caleb Plant. I'm not sure if he's good with that 10 million or anything like that. Like I mean, I was saying earlier, I thought he was supposed to be fighting Anthony Durrell, but I haven't seen no announcement on that yet. So, who knows? So that leaves David Morrell Jr. He has to fight against Kelvin Henderson, and if he goes through that fight, has that fight through with no problems, then hey, David Benavidez versus David Morrell Jr. That's going to be a real good fight.
It is, and Samson said that is the most likely fight that's going to be next.
Yeah, he pretty much said that last night, earlier today, through Twitter Spaces and stuff like that. So, there's that, man. And I really didn't care. Be honest, I really didn't care that much about the Alimkhanuly Dignum fight. And I know MVO, I know how you feel about Jamel Herring. So we probably won't revisit that unless if you feel like he should have one more fight, and that fight would be against Chris Colbert. But outside of that, I know that you didn't really want to go that much into that particular bout.
Nah,
I got a
I'll
question
say
for him.
All right.
What you mean you don't understand what I was saying? What don't you understand about what
you
I
were
was saying about?
rambling about something about using some type of something about the body and
See, you
I
didn't
didn't
listen. That's the
what
thing.
no, I didn't know what the fuck I was confused.
All I was saying was, if I had to ask one thing for Charlo to improve on, it's to calm his mind. When he fights, to me, I'm going to compare him to Errol Spence. Not comparing him, just giving you a different example. When Errol Spence fights, you can tell there's sort of like a calm chaos. He's calm in his mind, and he's not sort of like, you know, like choppy, sort of all over the place. But when I see Charlo fight, I can see the sort of how fast his mind be going. And if I just had to ask if anything, because yeah, he overcame this guy, but let's say he in a fight where he get dropped or something, that fast mind ain't gonna help him. It's gonna, like, you gotta slow your mind down, and even though stuff coming fast, it's gotta look slow. That's how people hit them fastballs and Michael Jordan and stuff.
Well, I don't know what you saw because I think Charlo fights exactly the opposite. I think Charlo is very calculated and cerebral. He showed that against Jason Rosario in a fight where people thought that he was losing rounds. He was just slowly picking his shots and breaking his guy down. And I thought he did an excellent job of picking his shots and forcing Castano to crumple in front of him, as Charlo said, over the course of the fight.
Yeah, that's what I thought. He was just very precise with his jabs, precise with his body shots. And anytime it was like an exchange or something in close quarters, he was, more accurate with what he was doing. Was sharp with his counters too over the course of that fight, and that was just the key thing there for him. He was very sharp. I thought he was the sharpest he had been his whole career in this particular fight. I know that there was like a lot of action in those first few rounds, but after about rounds 4 or 5, you kind of like seeing Jermell Charlo be more dominant in that particular fight. And there wasn't really much of an answer from Castaño, or there wasn't no adjustment from Castaño in that fight, for him to get back in it. So, that's how I saw it.
I ain't saying that he didn't make him crumble, because that's exactly what he did. And my response was that he broke him down. What I'm saying is, the way he fights, it's just, I'll have to look at it and see what about it, what tale show me that. But it's a certain way that he fight that makes me feel that his mind is going like so fast. Yeah, maybe my emotional intelligence. I'll have to explain it for you mortals.
Well, you are the boxing academic, so I'm gonna assume that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I gotta look at it again, because I don't have the words to describe what make me. I mean, other than just even hearing him talk. Like, if you listen to how he, I'm not basing this off of this. I'm basing it off he fight. But if you think about how he talks, his mind go fast.
Yes, you're the boxing academic, not the academic. So, maybe you will find the words one day, but I do trust your boxing brain.
Okay, I'll go on mute now.
Oh man! All right. Yeah, that was the thing that I wanted to revisit. Was from last week. There was like a fight of the year contender there up to a certain point, with a great finish, and that was probably one of the better fights that I like attended live in one of the better venues that I've been to. So that was an experience, to say the least, on that. Of course, what's going down next week is that Tank Rolly fight, so that's that. And of course, the other fights that are happening at the beginning of June with Fulton versus Roman. Of course, Kambosos versus Devin Haney. And you do have the rematch between Naoya Inoue and Nonito Donaire. And that's pretty much what's going down in the next couple of weeks. So just looking forward to those fights. Anything else there that anyone wants to drop here before I close it out?
Go Deontay Wilder. He's a legend. I'm so happy for him. And it's too bad that Mike is not going to attend.
Yes, it's midweek. I'll see him another time.
He said I'll probably see him in his next fight that's coming up in the late summer, I guess.
I mean, his tickets cost too much for me now. He make too much money, which is a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. But
I'm gonna see him when we do a business venture way back, in the future.
Gotcha.
When people put respect on his name, and I'm gonna take a picture and send it to Matt.
Oh yeah, we'll see. How that goes out there, because he does have a couple of business ventures currently that's doing fairly well, if I'm not mistaken. But outside of that, I guess the WBC and Mauricio Suleiman and other representatives in the boxing game are trying to get him back in the ring, and we'll see. There's going to be any updates on that here in the next few days or in the next week or so. But with that being said, that's it for me on my side in this particular episode of the Boxing Source Radio Show. Thank the Boxing Academic and MVO for joining in this particular podcast. We will get right back at it next week. Should be for May 29th. And like I said at the end of every show, folks, the point of boxing is to hit and not get hit. Not to send and trade. On that note, I'm out. Have a good evening, everybody.